She didn't whisper it. She didn't hint at it. She said it directly on camera to the world.
We live in a fake society.
A fake society built by people with names you recognize. People with platforms worth billions. People who told you one story for decades and are now telling you a completely different one.
My fault, Jane. It's not my fault. And I could weep right now.
She could weep after 40 years. After 40 years of telling millions of women that discipline was the answer, that willpower was the cure, that the body was something to be conquered, now suddenly it's not her fault.
I was so motivated by shame that I felt I could not take the drug. Because if I took the drug, I who have been the poster child for I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, willpower.
Weighing less, and selling that obsession to the world didn't stop at Weight Watchers. It didn't stop at GLP-1 injections. And it didn't stop at crying on television about jeans. Jamie Lee Curtis is now pulling back the curtain on exactly how far Oprah has gone. And the picture underneath is darker than anything you've seen on daytime television. Stay with me because this goes deep. Let's establish something right now before we get into everything Jamie has said and done to expose this system. Oprah Winfrey is not just a television host. She is not just a media personality. She is a cultural architect. She has shaped the way millions of women think about their bodies, their worth, their appetite, literally and figuratively, for 4 straight decades. And that level of influence comes with a level of responsibility that Oprah has consistently and very profitably ignored. Cast your mind back to 1988, the year Oprah Winfrey rolled a wagon full of animal fat onto the stage of her talk show. 67 pounds of it. Representing every pound she had lost through sheer discipline and restriction. The audience went wild. The cameras loved it. The clip played on loop across every television network in America. It was one of the most iconic moments in talk show history. But here's the question Jamie Lee Curtis would want you to ask. Who was that moment actually for? Was it for the millions of women watching at home who had spent years fighting with their own bodies? Or was it for Oprah? A performance of victory. A theatrical demonstration that willpower wins. That if you just try hard enough, if you just want it badly enough, you can drag that weight off your body and parade it across a stage in a little red wagon. The message was clear. You are in control. You just aren't trying hard enough.
These years, I thought I was overeating. I was standing there with all the food noise, what I ate, what I should eat, how many calories was that, how long was it going to take. I thought that was because of me and my fault.
35 years. That's how long Oprah sold that message. 3.5 decades of telling women their body was a discipline problem, a character problem, a willpower problem. And then in 2023, she got on GLP-1 injections. And suddenly the whole story changed. Now she says obesity is a disease. Now she says genes are responsible. Now she's crying on CBS and saying it was never her fault. Now she's off the Weight Watchers board, a company she owns stock in, a company she promoted relentlessly, so she can pivot to promoting a new product, a new solution, a new thing for women to buy. Jamie Lee Curtis watched all of this unfold. And unlike the rest of Hollywood, she didn't applaud the vulnerability. She called it exactly what it is. That's the machine Jamie is dismantling. Not the idea of medicine, not the idea of health. The machine that keeps women perpetually convinced that their body is a problem requiring an external purchasable solution. First it was willpower. Then it was Weight Watchers. Then it was GLP-1. What's next? And who profits every single time the narrative shifts? Now before we go any further, we need to address something that is actively circulating online right now because it is connected to this story in a way that the internet has completely missed. When the Department of Justice released documents connected to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, something happened almost immediately. Within hours, the internet was flooded. Conspiracy posts exploded across X, formerly Twitter. Wild claims, disturbing allegations, viral content engineered to shock rather than inform. One of those names caught in the blast radius of that chaos was Oprah Winfrey. That's right. Oprah Winfrey's name appears in the broader Epstein document index alongside hundreds of other high-profile individuals, including politicians, celebrities, and public figures. And the internet did exactly what the internet does. It ran with it. It escalated it. It turned a name appearing in a peripheral document into something it most absolutely was not. Now, let's be clear, precise, and honest about what that actually means. Because the truth here is more important than the clicks. Appearing in the Epstein files is not evidence of wrongdoing. Period. Thousands of names appear in these documents. Many of them appear in third-party communications, interview references, flight logs, or background materials with zero allegations of criminal conduct attached to them. Oprah Winfrey has not been charged with anything. There is no credible evidence connecting her to Epstein's crimes. And unlike some of the viral posts that exploded online around other celebrities, the kind that spiraled into completely fabricated, deeply disturbing claims with zero basis in reality, Oprah's connection to these files appears to be exactly what it looks like on the surface. A name in a document, nothing more. But here's where it gets genuinely interesting. Because Jamie Lee Curtis is not talking about Epstein. She is talking about something else entirely. A different kind of darkness, a different kind of power structure, one that operates completely in the open on television, in magazine covers, in glowing press releases, and tearful confessions, and has been doing so for 40 years. Jamie's exposure of Oprah isn't about conspiracy. It's about something arguably more insidious because it's been celebrated rather than hidden. It's about the way powerful women in Hollywood have used their platforms to monetize other women's pain. So, let's get into the real question this video is built around. How far has Oprah Winfrey actually gone in her pursuit of youth, beauty, and physical transformation? And what has she been willing to sell, and to whom along the way? Because the answer, when you lay it all out, is genuinely staggering. Let's start at the beginning. Oprah's relationship with her body has been one of the most publicly documented, commercially exploited personal journeys in television history. The wagon moment in 1988 wasn't just a TV stunt. It launched an entire ecosystem, a brand, a business model. Oprah became the face of the struggle, the relatable, powerful, beautifully imperfect woman fighting for control of herself. And that relatability was worth billions. She invested in Weight Watchers. She promoted it from her platform. She lost weight publicly. She gained it back publicly. She talked about food addiction, emotional eating, shame spirals, and self-love. All while her ownership stake in the company fluctuated with every pound she gained or lost on television. The personal and the commercial were completely fused. Her body was the product.
So now I realize that I'm on the medications and will have to be on the medications if I want to for the rest of my life.
Now, fast forward to 2023. Oprah announces she has been using GLP-1 weight loss injections. She says she will be on them for the rest of her life. She steps down from the Weight Watchers board conveniently in February 2024. Right as she pivots fully to promoting the medication narrative.
I remember doing a show many years ago, and Janet Jackson was on it and lost weight, and I said, if there's ever a pill, yes, I will be the first one to tell you about it. And so now there actually is a pill.
Promised a pill and she delivered one. Now here's what Jamie Lee Curtis sees in all of this that most people are missing. It's not the medication itself Jamie objects to. It's the system. It's the fact that every single chapter of Oprah's body journey has had a product attached to it. A thing to buy. A dependency to create. A narrative to sell. And the genius and the horror of Oprah's approach is that she always makes the commercial feel personal. She always makes the product feel like liberation. She cries real tears. She shares real pain. And then she sells you the solution. And you buy it because you trust her. Because she's been in your living room for 40 years telling you she understands. Your body is wrong. You need us to fix it. That is the message. It has always been the message. Only the product changes. But here's why Jamie Lee Curtis's voice carries a weight that nobody else does right now. She isn't speaking from the outside. She isn't a commentator. She isn't a critic sitting safely away from Hollywood's gravitational pull. She was inside it. She got pulled in by it. And the consequences for her were devastating in ways that most people still don't fully understand. Jamie was born into Hollywood royalty, daughter of Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. She didn't just grow up adjacent to the industry. She grew up inside its machinery. She watched her parents undergo surgery after surgery, lift after lift, procedure after procedure, chasing relevance in a system that discards women the moment they show the slightest evidence of having actually lived their lives. She watched it happen to her mother. She watched it happen to her father. And then in 1985 at 25 years old, she let it happen to
Yeah, I'm
her.
not shooting her today. her eyes are baggy. And I was 25. So for him to say that was very embarrassing. So as soon as the movie finished, I ended up having some plastic surgery.
And how did that go?
Not well.
25 years old, a cinematographer looked at her on set and refused to film her because her eyes were baggy. She was 25, and that one comment, one sentence from one person sent her down a path that would take a decade of her life. She got surgery, lower blepharoplasty, minor procedures, standard stuff in that world. The kind of thing agents and managers and directors quietly suggest all the time, as casually as they'd suggest a new haircut.
It's just not what you want to do when you're 25 or 26. And I regretted it immediately and have kind of sort of regretted it since.
But the surgery didn't work. The thing it was supposed to fix, the insecurity, the shame, the feeling of not being enough, it didn't touch any of that. In fact, it made it worse because now she had the surgery and the insecurity, and she had the painkillers they gave her for recovery.
I became very enamored with the warm bath of an opiate. You know, drank a little bit, never to excess, never any big public demonstrations. I was very quiet, very private about it, but it became a dependency for sure.
A warm bath. That's how she described it. The relief of opiates after surgery, a dependency that lasted 10 years. One comment from one cameraman led to surgery, led to prescription painkillers, led to a decade-long opioid addiction. That is the real cost of the beauty machine, not the price tag on the procedure. The human cost is the decade of your life cost, the addiction cost, the identity cost. And Jamie is adamant this chain of events didn't start with her weakness or her vanity. It started with a system that told a 25-year-old woman that her natural face was a professional liability. The same system Oprah Winfrey has profited from for 40 years. Here's something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. The pressure on women in Hollywood to surgically alter their appearance doesn't only come from directors or cameramen. It comes from the entire ecosystem surrounding a celebrity: agents, managers, publicists, cosmetic professionals, a whole professional support network whose income is directly tied to how marketable their client is. Jamie calls it the enabling bubble, and it is one of the most suffocating environments imaginable.
I had some, look, now that you say it, I had some manager one time tell me to get a boob job, and I was like, why don't you get a job? I was like, I'm proud of my itty bitty titties. Get out of here. I was like, who does that? I say it all the time to people in the industry.
People say that all the time to people in the industry, as if suggesting permanent surgical modification of a woman's body is as routine as recommending a new hairstyle. And this is the environment Oprah doesn't just exist in, she amplifies it. She takes the pressure that agents whisper in green rooms and puts it on television. She takes the insecurity that managers exploit in private meetings and broadcasts it to 50 million people. When Oprah promotes GLP-1 medication on her platform, she isn't just sharing her personal story. She is creating demand at industrial scale. She is telling every woman watching that if Oprah, powerful, wealthy, beloved Oprah, needed pharmaceutical intervention to fix her body, then what chance does anyone else have?
And what the GLP-1s have done for me, and I know a number of other people, is to quiet that.
Quiet the noise. That's the promise. And it's a seductive one. Jamie Lee Curtis is not dismissing the reality that some people struggle with their weight. She's not dismissing the science of obesity. What she is dismantling is the way that struggle has been packaged, monetized, and sold back to women as a product with Oprah Winfrey's face on the label. Because here's the timeline that nobody is laying out clearly. Oprah promotes willpower and discipline. Sells Weight Watchers. Oprah admits willpower isn't enough. Sells GLP-1 medication. Oprah steps down from the Weight Watchers board just before pivoting fully to pharmaceutical promotion. Every shift in narrative has been perfectly timed to a new commercial opportunity. And every time Oprah cries on television, sales go up somewhere.
Because I think the struggle with the weight actually helped me be more relatable and relate more to other people who were in their own struggles.
She wouldn't change the journey because the struggle made her relatable. And relatable is profitable. Jamie Lee Curtis sees this. She has named it. She has called it out in a series of interviews that have genuinely shocked Hollywood because nobody at that level of the industry speaks this plainly about these things.
We live in a fake society, Hoda, and I have waxed poetic and become a bit of a militant about the cosmeceutical industry that are feeding young people, unfortunately, that you can do something to change the way you look when you can't.
Now, let's talk about the word Jamie Lee Curtis used that sent shockwaves through the entertainment press. The word that made headlines, the word that made people uncomfortable, the word that she refused to walk back: genocide. When critics challenged her choice of language, she didn't apologize. She didn't soften it. She clarified it. She said she was talking about the genocide of natural human appearance, the systematic, commercial, culturally enforced erasure of what real human faces and real human bodies actually look like. And when you look at what technology is doing alongside this industry, you start to understand exactly why she chose that word.
Now, the problem is technology. We could do it on our phones. We can wipe away our lives. And there are too many celebrities, I will not name you, who do it on the daily, who post these ridiculous images of themselves as if they look like
filters, AI, digital editing tools available to anyone with a smartphone. The face you see on Instagram is not a face. It's a digital rendering of a face, a phantom constructed by an algorithm. And women, young women especially, are surgically altering their actual faces to match a phantom that literally doesn't exist. Jamie compared unrestricted access to beauty filters to giving a chainsaw to a toddler. And that image, a toddler with a chainsaw, is exactly as alarming as she intends it to be. Because this is the world Oprah Winfrey helped build. The world where a woman's body is a before and after story, where the after is always for sale, where the before is always framed as failure. Botox freezes faces. Fillers distort proportions. Surgical interventions alter genetics. And at the end of it all, you get what critics have started calling emotional paralysis. Actors who can no longer communicate naturally through facial expression because the tools of that expression have been chemically or surgically disabled. Jamie Lee Curtis isn't just fighting for vanity. She's fighting for humanity. For the right of a face to tell the truth. For wrinkles to be allowed to exist. For a body to be allowed to age without being treated as a malfunction requiring a pharmaceutical patch.
What I really want to do is to continue to use who I am and what that represents as a force in the world, as a force for good, and to allow people to not let the noises of the world steal their joy.
Don't let the noise steal your joy. That's what she's fighting for. Not against medicine. Not against personal choice. Against the machine that manufactures the noise in the first place. Against the system that decides what a woman should look like, then sells her the tools to become it, then sells her the remedy when those tools fail, then cries on television about how none of it was ever her fault. Oprah Winfrey has spent 4 decades inside that machine. Jamie Lee Curtis has spent 4 decades fighting her way out of it. And right now, in 2025, Jamie is winning the argument because the audience is finally ready to hear it.
I have it all throughout my life. And you know, for a long, long time, I think I was afraid of it because it was powerful. I didn't play my aces. I didn't play my strong suits. I was afraid to. I thought people would be intimidated. And now I'm just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to die one of these days. Pop them down. Ace, 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 ace. And I've got a good hand.
She's got a good hand. Letting the industry deal it for us. Jamie Lee Curtis isn't asking you to throw away your skincare routine or cancel your gym membership. She's asking you to question who benefits every single time you feel like your body isn't enough. She's asking you to look at the people selling you the solution and ask yourself, did they create the problem first? Oprah Winfrey is one of the most powerful women who has ever lived. And Jamie Lee Curtis just looked her square in the eye and said, you built this. You sold this. And it is time for someone to say so out loud. The question is whether the rest of Hollywood is brave enough to follow her lead. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Jamie Lee Curtis went too far or did she not go far enough? And if you want more on the people behind Hollywood's beauty machine, hit subscribe because we're just getting started.